Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Labor Day edition of To The Point podcast. Everybody's doing well on this Labor Day Monday. Hope everybody's celebrating the holiday the way they want to. It's good to have a day off and not have to go to work. And this weekend so far has been great. Obviously jumped on the podcast on Saturday where I talked a lot about the Friday night in sports. And it really has carried itself into Saturday and Sunday, where Saturday was a huge day for me personally. Got to watch a lot of college football, to watch the U.S.Open, which has been one of the best tennis majors I can remember, like in recent memory. It's been fantastic. We had really signaling the end of the golf season. We will see the Ryder Cup in a few weeks, but we saw the Tour Championship. Major League Baseball is on the home stretch. The NFL season starts on Thursday night. We got some news actually about that opening game, which I'll get to in this podcast. But I thought I'd start talking about college football. And for me, football is the mecca. Football is my favorite sport. There's nothing I just couldn't get more enjoyment out of watching something, whether it's college, the CFL, the NFL, and there's storylines galore. Yesterday watching Saskatchewan and Winnipeg was a great game. The Labor Day Classic, and then we'll see the rematch next weekend in the Banjo Bowl. But this weekend was college football, and it was really a rebirth because last year around this time, the Big Ten, which has schools like Ohio State, Michigan, Maryland, Minnesota, they were not playing. They came out and said because of COVID-19, we are choosing not to play. The Pac-12, teams like Oregon, Oregon State, UCLA, USC, these schools were not playing either because of COVID. Now, the SEC, of course they're playing. It's down south. We've seen from the beginning, COVID-19 has not exactly been at the forefront down there. Not going to get into whether that's a smart thing or not. But nevertheless, they were playing. But it was a lot of conferences where we had the ACC playing with teams like Clemson, Notre Dame. They were deciding to play. But we didn't get to see marquee matchups. We saw Alabama play the Citadel and blow them out and playing some teams that you're like, I don't really want to watch this. I mean, I'm going to because I'm a super fan, but it's not a compelling matchup. But week one of the college football season was anything but boring. On paper, you see Clemson versus Georgia. That's a Final Four game, but you get it in week one on September 4th. That is unbelievable. That's a game that 70,000 people in Charlotte, North Carolina to watch that game. Look, you got UCLA, LSU. You got a Pac-12 team playing the SEC, and LSU heading to the Rose Bowl to play at UCLA. That's a big game. You got Ohio State, Minnesota. They're both in the Big Ten, but it's still a good game. And then we saw games you wouldn't expect, like Montana beating the University of Washington, the Oklahoma Sooners nearly losing to Tulane. It was a tumultuous day, and ultimately it was fantastic football. It was fantastic theater, and that's what this sport can bring, and that's what this sport is theatrics. It's entertainment. And looking at Saturday as a whole in college football, there's some obvious ones. You see Alabama cruise. They lost 9 players on offense from last season. Yet they go and beat University of Miami, which is a program that's really starting to rebuild itself. They got quarterback transfer Derek King from Minnesota. They hired Manny Diaz, who's been a great head coach. But you get Alabama week one, you put that in your schedule, and you get destroyed. And they do. And Alabama, they come into the season ranked number 1 after losing all these players, and they look like the number 1 team in the country. You got a new quarterback in Bryce Young, who threw 12 for 18 against the blitz for 158 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's just against the blitz. This guy he can run, he can pass. He goes for the day, 27-38, 344, 4 touchdowns. He also, he's a guy that has more in the toolbox. I think he can run the football a little bit, but he's got an arm. And you look at the receivers. John Mechie III, Canadian wide receiver, still looks very good. They got Javonte Williams, who's really a breakout star, caught a 94-yard touchdown from Bryce Young. So Alabama is again at the top of the heap. But then I start to look, and you go, well, Iowa State, they're ranked 7th in the country. They nearly lose to UNI, but they're ranked. You have Texas get a win, USC, Liberty with Malik Willis, who is a Heisman frontrunner. He's an interesting quarterback, running for 55 yards and a touchdown as well. Auburn crushing, but the biggest win, of course, the biggest game was on primetime. The two really late night games are the headliners for me, other than Spencer Rattler, which I'll get to. But Clemson versus Georgia, you have Clemson, who's had Trevor Lawrence for a number of years. They've had players like Amari Rodgers, who's now part of the Green Bay Packers, Travis Etienne, who's gone to the NFL. But they're still a very good program. They got James Skalski, their captain on defense. They still have Dabo Swinney, head coach. It's still an elite program. And they play in the ACC, where it's not exactly loaded with competitors. And we saw University of North Carolina lose in week 1. So and University of Miami. So it wasn't a great weekend for the ACC. And then you got the Georgia Bulldogs, who haven't really been in the title picture for a while. They battled with Alabama a few years ago, but Kirby Smart has had good programs, but he hasn't had the team to get through. And like in all of football, quarterback is key. And he's had good quarterbacks, but not great quarterbacks. A few years ago, they get to a national championship game with Jake Fromm, but he couldn't get them over the top. They had Justin Fields at Georgia, but Fromm beat him out for the job, which seems crazy now because Justin Fields was drafted 10th. Jake Fromm was a 5th-round draft pick. I don't think he'll ever play in the NFL. But, Justin Fields goes to Ohio State, and the rest is history. But Georgia's been missing that key piece, and they're hoping that JT Daniels is that guy. But Saturday night's game, and this is why I loved it, it wasn't about quarterbacks. It wasn't about skill position players. It was about defense. And you get Clemson versus Georgia. It's a neutral site game, and Georgia beats Clemson 10-3. 10-3. Clemson had 0 points at the half. Georgia led 7-0 at halftime, yet it wasn't because of their offense. Georgia put up the only touchdown of the game was a pick 6 by the Bulldogs with 2 minutes, 58 seconds remaining in the second quarter. Christopher Smith, 74-yard interception return for a touchdown, goes pay dirt. That was it. 7 points. That throw by DJ Uiagalelei decided the game. And a couple things for both these teams. This wasn't in college football, one loss can be catastrophic. Yet I don't think this will be for Clemson because a couple of reasons. They play in the ACC. I just mentioned they don't have the toughest competition down the stretch. They should be able to win. You look at the rest of their schedule, I don't know if they'll lose another game. Maybe there's a shock in there. Maybe this is going to be a college football season that's full of upsets. I would be in full favor of that. See teams like Cincinnati break through Iowa State. That would be really interesting to me. But looking at their schedule, they're going to be favored in every game the rest of the year. So that bodes well for them. But also, Georgia has got to play Alabama. So that means that, maybe Georgia will beat Alabama because I liked how Georgia played. But on paper, that's a loss. They still got to play A&M, which is no slouch. So they're playing in the SEC. It's just a tougher conference. It's tougher to get through the season without suffering 1 or 2 defeats. But for both teams, I still think both these teams are very much national championship contenders because of their defense. If I'm just watching the sport, if I'm a fan of a team, I want my defense to be playing well early rather than my offense. because my offense will hopefully catch up. I have more faith in that because you get more reps, you get more game action, your quarterback gets more experience, he feels the lumps, and he'll get better. Looking at Clemson with UG Ugagale, he looked like he wasn't prepared. And it's because of lack of experience more than anything. He was sacked 7 times. Now, Georgia does have a great defense. And they made that Clemson offensive line suffer, and they really hurt them. But also, he didn't move up in the pocket. He's got athleticism. He needs to run the ball more. He had holes. Kirk Herbstreit was talking about it on the broadcast where he's got holes to run. It was clearly obvious, but he would hold the ball, and it was almost like he was afraid to run, or he felt like he had to make a throw. When if you have athleticism, and this is the new NFL, if you have 6-7 yards on first down, take that. Slide. Then it's a 2nd and 3. 2nd and manageable is better than 2nd and long, where you get a second and 2nd and 17, and then you got to move the sticks. It just keeps going back and back, and your life gets progressively harder. So I think for this kid, this is only his 3rd career start. He had to make 2 last year because when Trevor Lawrence got COVID, but he needs to, he'll learn and he'll get better. Now, this was a terrible, looking on paper, you're like, this is the guy they're talking about. This is who Clemson recruited, but I still think he's got game. It's just he ran into a tough team in Georgia. Aduake, number 17. If you're watching a Bulldog game, look out for this guy at outside linebacker. This guy's going to the NFL. I kind of started a chart for college football players to watch and just studs. He jumped off the page for me. He was on, whenever he's on the field, he's doing something. I love the way he plays. And also for Clemson, in a losing effort, Ugagale threw for 178 yards, 19 for 37, not very good statistics, 1 interception. But their defense played great. They only allowed 3 points. Again, the touchdown, they lost 10-3, but it was a pick 6. The defense put up 7 points, so they allowed 3 points. That's it, the entire game. So that's another positive from Clemson. You're going against one of the best teams in the country. And Georgia, with this win versus Clemson, will likely rise to number 2 in the power rankings because Oklahoma, who started the week number 2, nearly lost to an unranked Tulane on Saturday. But this was a fascinating game. It's not, to me, a 10-3 football game is like a golf tournament where the winner finishes +3. It's like the U.S.Open, where it's not always pretty. You see a lot of bogeys. Guys aren't putting up great numbers. But I personally like that. I like to see them go through a challenge. And defensive football can still win games. And that proved it this weekend because we saw another game where Penn State, Wisconsin, where it was a defensive struggle. And it was a battle to see who could actually put up points. And to me, yes, I don't think either offense is very good in this game. The game finished 16-10 in favor of Penn State, but their defense made 2 huge plays. Wisconsin gets the ball, field goal for a field goal, 25-yard field goal, it gets blocked. Then Wisconsin fumbles inside the Penn State 10. And the rest of the day, Wisconsin and Graham Mertz just couldn't get anything done. I don't think they allowed him to do much. But Penn State goes into Wisconsin, into Madison, and picks up a victory on the road. A huge win. And again, I don't trust Penn State to be that good of a team because I don't trust their offense, Sean Clifford and what they do there. But nevertheless, you're a 19 seed to start the day. You beat a 12. You're going to rise in the rankings, and you deserve some respect for that. So that was another interesting game. But I mentioned the game between LSU and UCLA. And back in the day, UCLA used to be a power. They used to be one of the meccas of college football where everybody respected UCLA because they were a team that you just didn't screw with. But they went through tough times. They went through head coach after head coach. No quarterback would pan out for them. And it just seemed like it was never going to work. Then they brought in Chip Kelly, who had success at Oregon, made it to a national championship with Marcus Mariota. Then he goes to the NFL, had a great year with Nick Foles, where he threw 27 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. But he goes to San Francisco, was kind of a disaster, comes to UCLA. His first 3 years, they never had a winning record. It looked like a disaster. I thought Chip Kelly might be fired, but they bring him back. But they make some moves. They get a transfer from Michigan and a running back in Zach Charbonnet. They finally have a quarterback that's got some reps, that's got some confidence. They get a wide receiver transfer in Kalen Phillips from Georgia. And they just have a different aura about them, where they host LSU Saturday night, but they get the win. They win 38-27. And LSU isn't the team that they were with Joe Burrow, but they came into this game ranked at 16, and LSU beats them. They're now 2-0 after beating Hawaii in week 0. Zach Charbonnet, the former Michigan running back, goes 11 rushes, 117 yards, and a touchdown. Then Bryce Brown goes 17 carries for 96 yards and a touchdown. And they have a good mix. They do. And Dorian Robinson only threw 16 passes, completed 9 of them, but 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. They were efficient. And I don't know if this means a complete turnaround for UCLA. We'll have to see what they bring to the table going forward, but it's definitely something that is good for college football to see the Pac-12 start to improve. USC has a quarterback that may go in the, was going to be one of the quarterbacks taken in this next draft in Keaton Slovis. You have teams that are just formidable. UCLA, next on their schedule, they have Fresno State. That won't be an easy matchup. Fresno State nearly upset Oregon, so that's an interesting game. Then they got Stanford. They should win. Arizona State is another ranked opponent. Herm Edwards coaches at Arizona State, so you're starting to see some better competition in the Pac-12. They got Arizona, Washington, who took a big loss Saturday night, and then there's their big game. On October 23rd, they play Oregon. And I think Oregon doesn't look good. They lost Kayvon Thibodeau, who's projected to be the first overall pick in this next year's draft. He had a forced fumble and a sack in the first quarter, but injured his ankle. Looks like he's going to miss some time, so it doesn't bode well. They play USC before the end of the year. So to me, they play the Pac-12 the rest of the year. And I think this could be a year where I don't think they'll be in the college football playoff. But if you can at least become ranked again, if you could play Oregon and make it interesting and, do some things to put yourself back on the map, then that's good for college football. UCLA winning in college football is like the Rangers or the Maple Leafs being relevant when it comes to winning Stanley Cups. And that's my hockey comparison, because they are a program that's been at the top for a long time. And you want them to be good. I mean, that's just, you want that team to be competitive and to win and to just be in the mix, because it just creates more interest. Looking at the team that's kind of been at the top of the Pac-12 for the longest time is Oregon. They play Ohio State this week. Interesting game. I know I'll be tuned into that one. They lose like I said, this lost Kayvon Thibodeau. He'll likely not play. That's a huge loss. They barely escaped Fresno State. So that's worrisome. Then they play Stony Brook, Arizona. So they have a similar schedule to UCLA down the stretch. Not many difficult opponents outside of the Pac-12. But, we'll see. We'll see what they can come up with, because, you almost lose to Fresno State. Now you play a team in the Big Ten. It would be a big win for Oregon to get a win over Ohio State, who's always in the Final Four. But that's an interesting game. But I think it was a great start to college football. And, you look at, it's only week 1. I think this is, for anybody to say this player's out of the Heisman is ridiculous. But Spencer Rattler and Sam Howell were the betting favorites to win the Heisman Trophy at the start of the season. And both guys didn't have great weeks. Sam Howell lost their 3 picks in his loss to Virginia Tech. And then you have Oklahoma and Spencer Rattler, who had a 37-14 lead at halftime. They ended up winning 40-35, but he only puts up 3 points in the second half, turns the ball over, and Oklahoma nearly loses to Tulane, who is not a very good football school. So it makes me worry about Rattler. He threw a pick on his first pass of the season. Now, he's got a ton of talent. I don't know if he's going to be a great pro yet. I think it's too early to say, but I do think he's got a lot of good abilities. He's clearly athletic. And I've heard some experts talk about his mechanics, how it can work on that, and how Lincoln Riley doesn't like to teach people about mechanics, even though Lincoln Riley's developed, Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield and Jalen Hurts, who have all gone on to be quarterbacks in the NFL, all starters in the NFL for that matter, including 2 first overall picks. But we'll see for Spencer Rattler and Oklahoma. They're just lucky they get out of that game with a win. But like I said, college football it's awesome. I encourage anybody to watch it. I think if you start watching it, you'll get hooked. Your Saturdays, like Sundays, if you're an NFL fan, will be filled up. Because looking ahead to next week, I mentioned Oregon, Ohio State. Notre Dame played a really fun game last night against Florida State, where Florida State was down 38-20, came back, tied the game, went to overtime. They missed a field goal in overtime, and Notre Dame ended up winning. But that was a lifesaver for Notre Dame, who just blew a huge lead. Nearly was a disaster for them. A fun team to watch will be Cincinnati. Desmond Ridder, a guy who I think will rise in the Heisman voting and also in potentially the draft. But big games of the week, you got Iowa State. That's a huge rivalry. That's a 5:30 start. That should be a fun game. Washington, Michigan, that'll be prime time on ABC. Michigan did win in week 1. So, and then Oregon, Ohio State really not as good on tap as week 1. But then you look at week 3, you got Cincinnati, Indiana, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Alabama, Florida in week 3. That's a fun game. So there's always something in college football. It's always going to be fun games and something good to follow. So like I said, it might not be for everybody, but I encourage everybody to give it a watch, because you'll get hooked. And like me, hopefully, maybe at least through me on this podcast, you'll start to learn some names and you'll see them in the NFL next in 2022 when they are drafted this April. But a great start to college football. Another player to watch is Hudson Card at Texas as they start to turn around their season, but he's a quarterback there. I think he's got a lot of potential and could lead that franchise back to relevance again. That's another school like UCLA where you want to see that team do well and at least be relevant, because it's better when Texas is relevant in college football, because they are a big program that holds a lot of weight. The U.S. Open has really been at the forefront of my weekend as well. And on Saturday, I talked about 18-year-old dominance, and that was Leylah Fernandez of Canada and Carlos Alcaraz of Spain, getting to the round of 16. It was really unheard of. But yesterday, the magic continued as just incredible performances, where you had Leylah Fernandez of Canada go up on Louis Armstrong Stadium, and she battled Angelique Kerber. Angelique Kerber is a 4-time major champion. She's, one of the most, fit women in the sport. And it started off with, a battle, and first set goes to Kerber as she breaks Fernandez late in the first set, and she wins the set. But throughout the match, the one thing I love about watching Leylah play tennis is she'll go big, and sometimes it hurts her, where she gets a lot of unforced errors, but she hits the ball so hard, she hits it deep, which makes it very hard for her opponent to get a good return back, and she can swat winners. But there are times when it's not going to work, where it goes long and it doesn't benefit her, but she's not afraid to go. She knows she's playing with house money. She's turning 19 today. So happy birthday, Leylah. but she knows that I'm not even supposed to be here right now. And she plays with such a fun mentality on the court. You can tell she's out there and she actually enjoys playing tennis. I think too often it's, well, are they having fun doing what they do? And no, because pressure's too high. Or if I lose, I know the media is going to criticize me. And that can get really mundane. I'm sure it's very hard as an athlete to really get pumped up for that, because you know criticism's coming and then you have to deal with that and, you know, process it and what have you. But Leylah just plays with such a freedom. And she goes down 4-2 in the second set. I'm kind of like, doesn't look like it's going to be her day. And Angie was playing good. But Leylah fought back, 4-2 down. She gets a break, hold serve, and then we go into a tie break, and she just found a way to win it, hitting big winners, forcing Kerber to stay long in points, and she got out of her comfort zone a little bit and started, hitting balls all over the place. But she just forced Kerber out of her comfort zone. She forced her to run, and it became difficult for her, where she wins the tiebreak 7-5, as close as it gets. She had to serve at 6-5 in the tiebreak. She had the point to serve to win, and she did it. And her biggest weapon is her forehand. It has such power. Like I said, it has such depth, and it makes it very difficult for her opponent to deal with. But so she wins that second set, goes into the third, and it was an early break. And from there, like the match against Osaka, she never gave her opponent a chance to get back in it. Kerber did have a few break points, but Leylah fought them off. She didn't give in. And ultimately, she wins 6-2 in the third set. The 18-year-old, now 19-year-old, advances to her first career major quarterfinal. And she'll now play Alina Svitolina, who beat Simona Halep earlier in the day. Svitolina was a bronze medalist at the Olympics in Tokyo. But for Leylah, like I said, she's playing with house money. She's not supposed to beat anybody. She wasn't favored against Naomi Osaka, one of the best tennis players in the world. She was not favored against Angelique Kerber, a 4-time major champion. She won't be favored the rest of the tournament. But that might be the best position for her to be in. Just looking at another Canadian woman. When Bianca Andreescu won the U.S. Open in 2019, she wasn't favored to win. She had beaten Serena at the Rogers Cup, but she was not the betting favorite to beat Serena in the final. She wasn't the betting favorite before the tournament to get to the Grand Slam final, but she did it. And having that, being under the radar, and Bianca was less under the radar because she had won a few tournaments, but Leylah's really under the radar. She was virtually unseen before this tournament, especially her play this summer. First round of the Rogers Cup, she's eliminated. First round of Cincinnati, she's eliminated. She's played very little tennis because her play hasn't been that good. But she's found success here, I think, just playing with a freedom. I think at the Rogers Cup, she clearly was frustrated in that match. I don't think she was having that much fun. She was getting frustrated with her box, getting frustrated with herself, and maybe was playing in front of the Canadian fans. But here she's just like, well, I have all these champions around me. It's just an honor. She mentioned after her match, it's an honor to be on the court with Angie. That mentality, I think, is the perfect thing for her to have. Just go out there, see what happens in the match, and have fun. And it's working for her to this point. And Svitolina's looked good so far this tournament. The mark on Svitolina is she's a very good player. She's been ranked inside the top 10 for 243 straight weeks, which is the longest currently in women's tennis. But she can't win the big match. She had the semifinal in Tokyo where she could have advanced to the gold medal match, but she lost. She ended up winning bronze. If you listen to me on this podcast, you know what I think about bronze medals. So she wins bronze. Good for her. But she's made it to semifinals at majors. She's never made it to a major final. She's made it to quarterfinals, and she loses matches she should win. And for Svitolina, yes, some people might not like to hear this because it's Canadian on the other side. She should win this match. She should. She's number 3 in the world. She's better right now than Leylah. Doesn't mean she will be forever. She's a better tennis player. She's got more experience. Her game is very diverse. I think she doesn't give up a lot. I like what Svitolina has in the tank. But to me, this is a good matchup for Leylah. Looking at that draw, she would either be playing Sabalenka, who I don't like her winning that match, or Krejcikova, who won the French Open. I think it's better for her to play Svitolina here. So you have a major champion, or Sabalenka, who I think is one of the rising stars. I mean, I picked her to win French. She didn't, but she's playing really good tennis here. She looks confident. I'd rather, you got to beat them eventually if you beat Svitolina, but I'd rather play one of these women first. That's just me. For her, I think that's a better matchup. Krejcikova has been on a roll. She won the French. She made the 4th round at Wimbledon. Making the quarterfinal here. She was ranked outside the top 70 to start this year. She's now 8th in the world and been at least to the round of 16 in every major since the French. That's a pretty good run. Beating Gabin Muguruza in straight sets last night. That's impressive. Muguruza's a multiple-time major champion and no slouch. So now we get to, there's another dilemma here because Leylah's playing doubles. And I get why she's playing doubles because this is not negative, but you start the tournament, if you're Leylah thinking, I might not make it that far in the main draw because I'm 18. I'd rather play some doubles, get me some experience, a little extra money, doesn't do me any wrong. But in her singles matches, in 4 matches, she's been on the court 8 hours. Svitolina has been on the court 4 hours in 4 matches. She's been on the court 4 more hours than Svitolina, and that does not count her doubles play. Now, she's scheduled to play doubles today. If I'm Leylah's coach, if I'm Leylah, I'm not playing doubles today. I'm pulling out of the doubles draw. And you are 3 matches away from winning a Grand Slam championship. You need to put all your energy, all your focus, your rest into winning this major. That's what matters. Yeah, the doubles championship would be nice, but that's not your goal here. Her goal is not to be a great doubles player. We have Gabrielle Dombrowski from Canada. That's what she does. She won yesterday as well. That's not the goal. The goal is to win this major. And to me, get rid of the doubles. Withdraw. You need rest. You're going to run out of gas. Yes, she's in fantastic shape. That's besides the point. She needs rest. She needs to just recuperate her body because it's not just about playing Svitolina. If you beat Svitolina, you got to play again. Then you got to play a final. And to this point, she's scheduled to play at 1:30 in a round of 16 doubles match. I disagree with that decision because you got to be prepared for tomorrow. That's how I look at it. The doubles championship, of course, that's would be nice on the resume, but a Grand Slam at 19 years old, put yourself on the map, take home over $3 million. That's life changing. Whatever happens in this tournament, she'll make more money than she ever has. But at the same time, put yourself in the best position to have success. And for her at this point, her tennis is pretty great. You need rest. You need your body to recuperate. And I just look at her and I say, take today off. And it doesn't look like she's going to. And she loves to play, but maybe she'll win both. That's just the spunk she has. She's only 19, but I think it's a mistake. But we'll see. Congratulations to her. But the other half of it, the other 18-year-old story is Carlos Alcaraz, who, this unknown player before, and he's 18 years old, and he beat Stefanos Tsitsipas on Arthur Ashe Stadium, 5-set match, nearly 4 hours long. And you're thinking, well, he had all this euphoria, and it was such a moment for him beating a top 3 ranked player in the world. He'll his momentum will ride. It's like riding a wave. It's going to crash in the round of 16. But he goes up against Peter Goshevitz of Germany, who's also in his first round of 16. And Alcaraz loses the first set 7-5. It was back and forth, a lot of breaks. Second set, he gets through it. He wins that set. But loses the third. Young 18-year-old, you lose the third set. That was such a deflating one, 7-5. But he has, even after close to a 4-hour match, this kid had stamina. He wins the fourth set 6-2 after getting a couple breaks. And then he bagels Goshevitz in the fifth set, winning it 6-0. And he's off to his first career major quarterfinal, the youngest in the last 30 years at the U.S. Open to reach a quarterfinal at 18 years old. And what a story for this guy. We see this a lot on the women's side. More often you see younger, Coco Gauff. We've seen Ostapenko. We've seen now Leylah. Women can do it because the women's draw is wide open. Men, it's normally the seeds win, but this tournament's been the complete opposite. You have Alcaraz, you have Botan van den Schulp from the Netherlands. He was a qualifier. He had to qualify to get into the U.S. Open. He had never been to New York prior to this major. He had to qualify just to get in, and he's the first qualifier to get to a quarterfinal in almost 50 years. And he's in a quarterfinal. This draw is wide open. You had TFO there. You had Goshevitz, Daniel Evans. So you have, on one side, you have Danielle Medvedev, number 2 ranked player in the world. He's playing fantastic tennis. He looks like he's going to win this draw. He made it to the 2019 final where he lost to Nadal in 5 sets, nearly coming from 2-0 down to win it. But he's playing some of his best tennis, and he looks unstoppable. He'll play Van den Schulp from the Netherlands. I think he'll take care of him. On the other side, you're going to have Alcaraz, who's played back-to-back 5-set matches. You got to think he's going to run out of gas eventually. But he's playing another Canadian. That would be Felix Auger-Aliassime, who was on primetime last night, and he got by American Francis Tiafoe. And he lost the first set where he had 12 break points in that first set, and it looked disastrous. But from then on, I'll give him credit. He kept his composure. He didn't freak out. He didn't pull his Shapovalov off like a few years back. He wins the second set easily. The third set was just both guys hold and serve. Both had opportunities to break, but it gets to a tie break, and Auger-Aliassime breaks through at 8-6, wins the tie break. TFO had a mini break lead, but at 2-0, but he fought back, wins at 8-6, ends up getting one break in the fourth set, holding on to win it 6-4. So Auger-Aliassime is now into the quarterfinal. He'll play Alcaraz, and Medvedev will play Van den Schulp. And I said this on Saturday, and he's backed it up so far. Felix Auger-Aliassime, if he does not reach the semifinal, it's a failure. But what would this mean for Canada? Well, if he beats Alcaraz tomorrow, which he should, it would be the first time in the history of a major that two Canadian men have made a semifinal in back-to-back majors. Shapovalov made the semifinal at Wimbledon. He lost to Djokovic. If Auger-Aliassime wins, he'll be in a semifinal. It'll be the first time in Open era that a Canadian man has made a back-to-back majors, made a semifinal. That's pretty hard to believe, but that's what's at stake here, where he should be favored. He's playing really good tennis. He looks locked in, and Denis Shapovalov is one of the most entertaining players to watch on all the tour, men or women. If you can just watch a tennis match, he's riveting because he's got a lot of antics, because he's just moving around a lot. But I don't think he's going to be the most successful male tennis player. Raonic did make a few major finals, so he did have a good run, but you never thought Raonic was going to win a major because all he had was that serve, and there's nothing else really. That he was like a John Isner where his game wasn't very diverse. Auger-Aliassime's got a bunch of different things. He's got a decent backhand. I like his return of serve. He's very aggressive. Sometimes he jumps on that first ball a little too quickly, but he's got a lot to his game. And to me, for Canada, the men's best chance of winning a major, it's Felix. And I just think he's got more in his toolbox is not as wide as Dennis, because Dennis can make trick shots. He's so dynamic. He's so entertaining. But Felix just does little things that you say, wow, how do you do that? And that's what's so compelling about Felix, is that he's so diverse, and he's got a lot of, he's cool, calm, and collected. And I like that about him. But I would say that Felix gives Canada their best chance at winning a major. I do think Shapovalov can get there. I think both guys could, but I look at Felix in the last year and change, how much he's grown. I give him a better chance of doing it than Dennis. And I could be wrong, but you look at this tournament, he doesn't have to play Djokovic till the final. He would play Medvedev, which would be a tough opponent, but that's not a first shot. That doesn't mean loss guaranteed by any means. And so, we've seen a lot of upsets in this tournament. You're looking at the draw today, you're playing Shelby Rogers, play Emma Raducanu. Shelby was down 5-2 in the third set to world number 1 Ash Barty. Broke her twice, came back, won the match in a tiebreaker. Incredible comeback from Shelby Rogers. She's, an unseeded player. Raducanu is a woman from Great Britain. She's only 18. So if she wins today, he's playing an Arthur against Shelby, it would be 3 18-year-olds into a major quarterfinal in one event, which is pretty incredible if she beats Shelby Rogers today. But as on court right now, you have world number 11 Belinda Bencic playing world number 7 Iga Swiatek. It's currently 6-5 Bencic in a first set tiebreaker. You get Carolina Pliskova playing Pavlyuchenkova. So women, the last 2 women that have been the runner-up in the last 2 Grand Slams are playing today. And second on Ash tonight, so second of the 2 primetime matches, we'll see Bianca Andreescu play Maria Sakkari. Bianca looking to become the second woman to punch her ticket to the quarterfinals. And then today for men, you get world number 4 Sasha Zverev, who was the gold medal winner at the Olympics, who's playing Yannick Sinner of Italy, who's really an up-and-comer, and he looks good. See Riley Opelka, the American, play Lloyd Harris. Berrettini plays Oscar Audi of Germany, another unseeded player. And Novak Djokovic is first on Ash tonight. He'll play Jensen Brooksby, the American, who is really intriguing. He's kind of an irritant. He just hangs around. I don't think Brooksby will win tonight, but I'm interested to see if he can give Djokovic any kind of fight. Djokovic did drop a set to Kei Nishikori over the weekend. But we'll keep, we're going to keep talking about tennis here and to the point. Tomorrow will just be me on the show. Seamus is got a few days off work. He'll be golfing tomorrow, so we'll do our Breaking Bad / second half of the Pacific Division coverage on Wednesday. So that'll be on Wednesday. So tomorrow I'll be talking about today's events. You got a lot. You got CFL games. We got with the Labor Day Classics. We got tennis today. Baseball. So a lot to talk about tomorrow, but that should be great. It should be interesting. But also, I have more before I wrap today. But this NFL season, on Sunday mornings, and be 11 a.m. Sometimes I'll be with a guest. Sometimes I'll be by myself. I'm gonna be doing a pregame show for the NFL, where I'm gonna talk about each game, kind of talk about who I see winning. Different injury notes you should use. So if you are in a pool, maybe tune into the podcast. I can update you on injuries, different things of that nature, how teams are stacking up. And I plan on doing that every week for the NFL season. So the NFL does start on Thursday night, but every Sunday I'll be doing a little recap of the games of the day, games to watch. And I do think I'm going to make the plunge this year and buy the Red Zone. Why not? I bought UFC Fight Pass. I have every other damn sports package it seems like there is, but might buy that one and just jump into the NFL pool. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Sunday mornings, 11 a.m. live on Facebook. I'll be doing an NFL show sometimes just by myself, sometimes with a guest, but tune into every Sunday of the NFL season. I will be doing that. So that should be a lot of fun. But yeah, tennis has been great major. It's hard to beat the U.S. Open and just all the drama that it brings. Just speaking of the NFL, Thursday night marks the opener. Cowboys at Buccaneers. Cowboys are coming off a disappointing season where they missed the playoffs. They get a tough draw playing Tampa Bay on opening night. Dak Prescott just coming off an injury, getting no snaps in the preseason. And they got some more bad news because their all-pro right guard, future Hall of Famer, Zach Martin, has tested positive for COVID-19, meaning he will be ineligible to play on Thursday. And it's another hit for the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott, his first snaps in 330 days. You got their offensive line where Lyle Collins and Tyron Smith both have not played since week 5 of last year. You don't have Zach Martin. You have a revamped defense. Micah Parsons will be making his debut. They were one of the worst defenses in the history of the Dallas Cowboys last year. How does Dan Quinn change that around? And on the other side of the ball, you have the defending Super Bowl champions, where Tom Brady is going to look to repeat for the second time of his career. And Tampa's got their full roster back from last season. They have every coordinator back. Head coach Bruce Arians is back. Doesn't look good for Dallas. This certainly does not help. Zach Martin is a huge part of the offensive line. They need to keep Dak healthy, to keep him safe this year. And that hurts their chances of doing that because he's not available. So that's just news for night one. I don't think that'll change. I think a lot of people are picking the Buccaneers anyway. But if you are thinking about leaning Dallas, this does hurt their chances of winning. He's a huge part of their offense, run game or pass protection, because he's really the glue of that offensive line. Tyron Smith and Lyle Collins are both great players, but Zach Martin is the guy going to the Hall of Fame, and he's just a huge part of the team, a huge leader of the team, and he'll be missed for Thursday night in Tampa Bay. The golf season ended basically yesterday, where we had the Tour Championship at East Lake, and for most of the weekend from Friday on, it was a battle between Patrick Cantlay and Jon Rahm. And Kevin Na, Justin Thomas, DeChambeau tried to get in the mix, but they never were really there. It was always Cantlay versus Rahm. And at the end of Saturday, Cantlay finished 18 with a birdie to get a 2-stroke lead. If you look at that hole where Rahm parted, he kind of lost the tournament on that hole. He's 18. He did not birdie. He only birdied 18 once. And that was on Thursday. And it's a par 5 where Cantlay birdied the hole every time. That really decided the tournament if you look at it in brass tacks. But yesterday, both players are just playing okay. You had Cantlay, who was shooting. He shot even par to 13. Rahm was only 1 under, so he's down by a stroke. But then you get to the 16th tee, and you get a birdie from Patrick Cantlay, and Jon Rahm just couldn't. He's down 2 strokes. But then you have he's birdied 16. Cantlay pars it. So does Jon Rahm in 17. You head to 18, and it was an interesting moment where Cantlay's up by a stroke, Rahm down by a stroke on 18, and he birdies. You look for Rahm. He's on the green. He chips for eagle, and this eagle would have tied it and would have sent it to a playoff, but he misses it and ends up birdieing the hole. So he's still down by a stroke. Cantlay birdies the hole, so he wins 21 under to Jon Rahm's 20. It was that eagle chip would have made the difference, and that truly decided the tournament. So Patrick Cantlay wins the Tour Championship. He's had a great tournament, just a fantastic year. He won the Memorial, won the BMW, finished top 5 at 2 of the majors, and he wins $15 million. That's what you get now for winning the Tour Championship. And with this in his career, he had only made $14.6 million. Only 14.6. I mean, nothing to shy, but now he makes $15 million just this weekend. Huge payday for him. And he was such just a vanilla guy, just there, just Patrick Cantlay, but he's getting the nickname Patty Ice because of his clutch putting ability. He doesn't show a lot of emotion. He's just so centered, so locked in. And I look at these two at the Tour Championship, the final two, and I wouldn't be shocked to see these guys again at the top of the leaderboard next year, where Jon Rahm, I still think, is the best player in the world. He finally broke through, won his first major at the U.S. Open, but Cantlay should be right there. He hasn't won a major yet, but looking ahead to next season, I'd be surprised if we left next season where Patrick Cantlay does not have a major title because he's that good. You win a tournament like Memorial, it's one of the bigger tournaments outside of the majors. He won that tournament. I mean, it was kind of by default. Rahm was going to win it until he tested positive for COVID, but he dealt with it. He won that tournament, beat Morikawa in a playoff. So I look at it, if these two are in the final pair next season, I wouldn't be shocked. Now, I wouldn't bank on it because golf is fickle, and one of these guys could have a terrible. Maybe Jon Rahm falls off. I don't think he'll be outside of the top 30 when it comes to playing for the Tour Championship. But again, these two players are very good, but there are still great players like DeChambeau, like Justin Thomas. I think Dustin Johnson had a solid end to the year after a really poor season when it comes to brass tacks. Xander Schauffele's still a very good player, but you had Patrick Cantlay collect $15 million. Jon Rahm finished second. He collects $5 million, but third place is Kevin Na at 16 under par. He collects $4 million. But the story for Na is really incredible. 4 weeks ago at the Wyndham, he was just trying to get into the top 125. He does that. He makes the final. He was part of the 6-man playoff. He loses the tournament when he's a runner-up, gets in. Then he plays a great tournament at the Northern Trust. He breaks into the top 70. Then then he goes into the BMW, finishes in the top 5. He gets into the Tour Championship, and he finishes third here. It was really a month span where Na keeps his tour card. He continues to play great golf, and he gets a $4 million payday where he just picks it up late in the season. And I haven't heard his name all year. He wasn't close to top of leaderboards, wasn't exactly playing the best golf. But late in the season, he found it, and he ends up losing this tournament by 5 strokes. But he beats Justin Thomas for third, so he collects more money than Justin Thomas. And good for Kevin Na. This is a story where you look at a guy that's been around the tour for a while, but he's still got game. And he ends up finishing third. And it's just a feel-good story for Kevin Na, where you have a really good couple weeks. He beats out guys like Thomas, like DeChambeau. And when you wrap a season, you think of certain players, what kind of years they had. I mentioned DeChambeau. I mentioned Dustin Johnson. Rory McIlroy didn't exactly have a fantastic year. He's, after winning the Tour Championship 2 years ago, it hasn't exactly been butterflies and rainbows for him. We'll see what he can do next year. The time off should definitely help him, but he's fallen off the last. He hasn't won a major in over 5 years. But really, the state of golf and the headliner of golf is Bryson DeChambeau. For better or for worse, and I think it's for better, but he's one of the most polarizing athletes in all of sports. And when in the past could you say one of the most polarizing athletes in sports is playing golf? Normally, let's just be honest here, golfers are boring white men. That's just a fact. But Bryson DeChambeau has changed golf, hitting the ball, 400 yards on drives, not caring if he hits a green, being really petty, getting into scrums with fans after they yell Brooksy at him. And he's just a really polarizing guy where, yes, he has his problems, but he's still one of the best players in the world. That's the thing, is he's a villain that can back it up. I had this debate with my mother yesterday where she goes, well, DeChambeau can't putt. And that's not true. And I'm not saying my mother doesn't know golf, but she doesn't know as much as me. And he lost at the BMW to Patrick Cantlay, where he shot 27 under par, and he lost the tournament. That's unheard of, to go 27 under and lose the tournament. He had 4 eagles. To make eagle, you have to putt. And he did that. The guy, he has an awkward putting stroke, don't get me wrong. But this guy he's one of the top 5 best players in the world, bar none. And is some of his antics annoying? Yes. And how he can look at his yard book and then he berates his caddy. And there's definitely things about him where you go, this guy's an asshole. But he's compelling. And in the content game, which I'm in, compelling is everything to me. Are you doing something that's interesting? Are you doing something that's relevant? If the answer is yes, then more likely than not, I'm on board. And that's what DeChambeau's been doing. He's outside the box. He's different. But that's what he does. That's what makes him very compelling. And I just love what's happening here. I think it's great for the sport, and they're partnering with Netflix to do kind of a similar show to like Try to Survive with Formula One. I think they should try to get DeChambeau to do this because, again, he's one of the faces of the sport. He's more well known than a Rory, than a Dustin Johnson. Those guys aren't that interesting. Bryson is. Brooks Koepka, that feud is great for golf. It's great for sports. And, when he goes and plays, he's going to hear Brooksy, or they'll call him Patty Ice if they can't call him Brooksy anymore. But yeah. I don't know. We'll see. But I think it's super interesting what's happening here. And great golf season. And we'll see what happens here. But I think it was a great season, great for golf. And, I think it's a great story and just, great all in all to see. And what golf's done this year, I think it's only gained in popularity, and the pandemic's helped it where people are playing more golf and people are more interested. But I think golf's on an upward trajectory. And for a long time, I don't think you could say that. So good to see all in all. This weekend, the Blue Jays sweep the Oakland Athletics to put up 29 runs in 3 games, which is really impressive. They catch a break yesterday where the Yankees lost and the Red Sox. Now they trail them by 4 games in the wild card. I mentioned on Saturday that it was irrelevant, their comeback Friday night, and maybe they'll make a run, but they're still 4 games back. But this is the season this week. They play 4 games against the New York Yankees in the Bronx. I think you need to win 3 of the 4. It's a lot to ask. I get it. But I think you need to win 3 out of 4 here. And you got the better pitching than the Yankees. You could argue you got better hitters. I think that's debatable. But this is your season. Yankees 4 times. Then you play the Orioles. You can go, if you can win 6-7 this week, then it's realistic. Then your comeback, then your make the playoffs argument is not one that I think is futile. Then I'll admit that I'm wrong. But to me, it's still a pipe dream, but it starts this afternoon. It's a 2:00 first pitch between the Yankees and Blue Jays. You also have the Red Sox this week playing the Tampa Bay Rays. So you can hope that the Tampa Bay Rays can do you a favor and that they can give the Red Sox some losses. So that would help the Blue Jays as well. Tough series against the Rays. You play the Yankees. So you control your fate here. You're playing a team that you're trying to catch. That's what you need to do. You played Oakland. Yeah, you swept Oakland, but you're still only even with them in games. So you haven't really surpassed them in any means. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But you need to make hay while you can. And this is a huge week for the Blue Jays. And I think this truly is their season this week. You lose 3 or 4 this week, it's done. Pack your bags, head to Punta Cana. The season's over. It's on ice. Dodgers and Giants. Giants take 2 out of 3 this weekend. Truly impressive, where they beat Walker Buehler last night, who I think prior to the game was the favorite to win the National League Cy Young. He gives up 6 earned runs. That's tied for the second most of his career. These San Francisco Giants continue to be stingy. They don't want to go away. The Dodgers have way more talent in their roster, but they just keep fighting. And it's going to be a battle to the end of the season. You got the Dodgers playing the Cardinals this week. You got San Francisco heading to Colorado. They'll both play today at 5 p.m. So Labor Day games today. That's going to be interesting to watch the rest of the year. Padres have jumped into the second wildcard spot in the National League, where Cincinnati's lost 6 of their last 8. Padres walked off the Astros yesterday. So we'll see baseball is getting interesting too. So today you got Labor Day CFL games. You got a U.S. Open tennis going right now. You got baseball. You got Louisville, Ole Miss tonight in college football. It's a loaded day for sports. So, I'll be by the tube today. That's the plan for the rest of the day. Just enjoy it. And actually, Belinda Bencic just took the first set over Iga Swiatek in tennis, 14-12 in the tiebreak. Just a battle there. Zverev is up a break on Yannick Sinner on Arthur Ashe. So 2 big battles in the tennis world. We'll definitely keep an eye there and watch Bianca Andreescu later this evening. But everybody have a great Labor Day. I'll be back tomorrow. Enjoy the day off and enjoy any sports that you catch this afternoon. But until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll talk soon.